حبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Something. So I'll narrate the hadith for you. Now, the theme that I kind of been using to fill in is the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the way he taught the Sahaba to see the bigger picture. Whenever it is that he taught them to do anything, he always got them he made sure that they saw the bigger picture, that they did not get caught up in trivial details, because it's easy to get caught up in trivial details in life, and he was very good at this. And يروي الإمام مسلم في صحيحه عن عائشة أم المؤمنين رضي الله عنها قالت, the hadith is a collection of Imam Muslim narrated by Aisha, and this happened right after Fatih Mecca. So this is one of the latest ahadith that we have, like in terms of time-wise, because I mean, as in the proximity to his passing, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's a very late hadith. So it happened in Fatih Mecca. And wallahu a'lam, it happened during the few days after Hajj, before he left, alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu a'lam, the majority of scholars at least, they see this hadith have been, they said these things before he left Mecca for the last time. Because if you remember, kind of recently we talked about his final Hajj, alayhi salatu, that he never came back to Mecca again. He left Mecca after Hajj, and he passed away 3 months later. So they say that these were within the few days after he performed his Hajj, when he camped right outside of Mecca, and he would go inside and out and pray and stuff, and he enjoyed a number of days in his life, alayhi salatu, before he left permanently. So during these days he said, Ya Aisha, لولا أن قومك حديثو عهد بإسلام لهدمت الكعبة وأعدت بناءها وألزقتها بالأرض وأدخلت فيها الحجر إذ إن قومك لما أعادوا بناءها أخرجوها منها. Or as he said this, alayhi salatu wasalam, because there may be a few words that I didn't get perfect in sequence. So what he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, to Aisha, and this is a very important hadith, it's an asl actually, it's one of the origins or one of the anchor pieces of evidence that scholars use when they talk about specific aspects of Islamic law. But he says here that Aisha, if it wasn't for the fact that your people, qawmaki, and here he's talking, and this is a very common way of speech, is when you like something about someone who is so if you and I are related, if we're brothers, for example, if I'm happy about him, I'll say my dad. If I'm not, I'll say your dad, even though he's our dad, yani. And this is a very more common way. So the Prophet ﷺ he's frustrated with Quraysh. It took them 20 years to accept Islam. And after they've accepted Islam, they're still exhibiting very poor judgment. And they're making they're saying things and behaving in ways that are not positive. So he said, لَوْلَا أَنَّ قَوْمَكِ. It wasn't for that your people, because her people are his people. They're both from Quraysh. حَدِيثُ عَهْدٍ بِإِسْلام. They are new to Islam. They just accepted. لهدمت الكعبة وأعدت بناءها على ما بناه عليه إبراهيم. In another narration, I would have tore the Kaaba down, and I rebuilt it as Ibrahim alayhi salam built it. In the hadith that I narrated to you, that I would have torn it down, rebuilt it, and then had the doors stuck to the ground. Because the doors of the Kaaba are now a little bit elevated. They're not. You need a few steps to go up. You wanted to put the doors on the ground. قال وجعلت بابا في دبورها. You want to put شرقيا. You want to put another door on the other side. وَلَأَدْخَلْتُ الْحِجْرِ. See, Hijr Ismail. You see how the Kaaba is. That it's a part of the Kaaba, and the Quraysh, when they had rebuilt, they didn't have enough rocks and didn't have enough wealth, so they didn't let that piece out. So they just made it a square or a cube, and they left that piece out. So the Prophet ﷺ was saying, if it wasn't for the fact that your people had just accepted Islam, I would have torn it down and rebuilt it the way Ibrahim ﷺ had actually built it. Now, there's a lot here to learn. Mind you, this never happened. He never did this, nor was this ever done. Till today, the Kaaba is not that way, as we have in the Sahih of his hadith, alayhi salatu wasalam, where he's expressing that this is how he would have wanted it to be. He would have wanted it to look like this. Till this day, it does not look like that. And I think there's like an implied divine message in this. Because the reason he didn't do it is that he was worried that Quraysh, who had just accepted Islam, would be shook by this. It would harm their faith. It would make them feel insecure. It would put them in a position where they are not comfortable with Islam anymore. Or they would feel that they accepted Islam and the first thing he does is he tears down the Kaaba. And he's changing everything. Is it not enough that he killed, he ruined, he destroyed all the asnam, but now he's also going to tear the Kaaba down. So for them, he felt that was too heavy for them to endure, that they couldn't put up with that. So he decided not to do it. Even though he thought that that was the right thing to do. Even though in his mind, this is the right thing to do. Is tear it down, rebuild it as Ibrahim alayhi salam built it, instead of the way as Quraysh did. But this is where the bigger picture comes in. Yes, I want to make some adjustments to the structure. But the bigger picture is that there's a lot of people who are ignorant, who are closed-minded, who don't know what is right and wrong yet. And doing this is going to jeopardize their faith, so I won't do it. This is regarding the Kaaba. The Kaaba. Are you aware of a structure more holy than the Kaaba? Is there one? Is there a structure on earth that's more holy than the Kaaba? Regarding the Kaaba, it needs to be redesigned because it wasn't designed properly. But out of fear of this causing people who, from their own accord, for their own fault, are ignorant, closed-minded, and insecure, and lack the iman. It's their fault. We won't do it though, because that's more important than this. And that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you. That's how he thought, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's how he thought. Again, no, it's not. It's the Kaaba though. This is the Kaaba. You're talking about rebuilding the Kaaba appropriately. Yeah, but they're going to lose their iman. They're going to lose their iman, these guys. No, else we don't do it. And we never did it. That is how important this is what it means. This is what it means to be a leader. This is what it means to understand priorities, to know what, this is something, if I start ranting on this, based on this hadith, it will never end and I'll get myself in trouble. And I'll get this whole place in trouble. The Prophet ﷺ decided to let the Kaaba stay the way it was, even though the way it was wasn't right, just to protect people that he knew were ignorant, mistaken, insecure, weak in their faith, and it was their fault, not his. But he still felt responsible for preserving that for them, protecting them, taking care of them. And he let the Kaaba stay the way it was. And I'll just end with that. And that's how he saw things, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that was his wisdom, and that was his rahmah, and that was his planning, and that was his love, and that's how he saw his ummah, and that's how he cared for the people who were around him. That's where structures and people come in balance. That's where the importance of a structure and the importance of a tradition, that's where it comes in, and people's faith come in, and how you deal with these two things and how you look at them. And this is a hadith, like I said, is an asl min usul al-sharia. It's one of the big anchor pieces of evidence that the scholars will use when they talk about things, because it teaches so much within it. And I just think it's worthwhile reflecting on it, to understand how he thought, alayhi salatu wasalam. And like I said, mind you, the Kaaba still hasn't been rebuilt. Still this day, it's still the way it is. Right? And it stands there as a monument to point out priorities to us, to teach us what really matters. What really matters is not something else matters more. يروي مسلم في صحيحه عن عائشة أم المؤمنين رضي الله عنها قالت قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا عائشة لولا أن قومك حديث عهد بإسلام لهدمت الكعبة ولأعدت بناءها وألزقت بابها إلى الأرض وفتحت بابا شرقيا ولأدخلت فيها الحجر إذ إن قومك أخرجوها منها لما بنوها. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك وبحمدك.